Britain's conversation, The Nigel Farage Show.
Mr. Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Donald, and good evening, everybody. Well, another day of breaking news in Washington, another good day for the president after many, many difficult weeks. And something else has happened today in British politics that's interesting. Just think over the course of the last few years, one of the dominant issues has been, would the United Kingdom break up? And if you remember, we had that dramatic referendum in Scotland back in 2014, where with a couple of weeks to go, some pollsters were suggesting it was neck and neck. In the end, it was 55-45 for staying in the United Kingdom. But of course, Brexit has changed everything. And with Brexit, we've seen people like William Hague, people like Tony Blair, saying that actually Scotland would break away, Northern Ireland would break away. Wales was never part of that equation. Wales, of course, voting for Brexit. But the argument was these parts of the UK voted to stay a part of the European Union, and that would threaten the integrity of the whole thing. And of course, here in Brussels, they talk with glee about the breaking up of the United Kingdom as nothing they'd like to see more. Well, just think about the last 2 days. Just think about what's happened. So the biggest party in Northern Ireland, the DUP, albeit Sinn Féin are the second biggest party, and they do want to leave the United Kingdom, and they always have. But the DUP are the biggest party in Northern Ireland, and they are now supporting the Conservative government. So that's a kind of big increased role from Northern Ireland, and they're going to be £1 billion better off over the next 2 years to boot. And significantly, today in Scotland, Nicola Sturgeon has said that plans for her second, and she calls it an independence referendum, I call it a separation referendum, but either way, that those plans are now put on hold, and she will wait and see what Brexit actually looks like before considering holding another referendum. Now, I suspect the real reason for that is, firstly, the SNP are nowhere near as strong as they were before the election, but secondly, people don't want a second referendum on separating from the UK, and actually the margin this time, I think, will be a lot wider than 55-45. So after these years of speculation about the United Kingdom coming apart at the seams, Scotland leaving, perhaps Northern Ireland too, I think things look very, very different this evening. And I'm asking you, do you think the United Kingdom is more united than it's been for many years? And I have to say, I do, because I don't see the people in Scotland or the people in Northern Ireland wanting to leave the United Kingdom if the idea is they're then going to join the European Union. They're then going to have to take the euro. They're then going to have to, basically throw away any concept of independence because they'll be part of the big European state. So I do think the United Kingdom looks more stable and more secure than it really has for some years. That's certainly my view. But I mean, I want to know what you think, and let me know. And if you agree with me that actually it looks very likely now that the UK will stay together, well, you can call me on 0345 60 60 973. You may think, nope, nothing's changed. We're as divided as ever, and perhaps Brexit will in the end break up the UK. Well, text me on 84850, and perhaps you think maybe this is all a step in the right direction, but it's still a long, long way to go. Then you can tweet me on @LBC, not forgetting the hashtag Farage on LBC, and you can watch the show live from here in Brussels by going to LBC's Facebook page now. And a bit later on, I'll tell you what I've been doing here in Brussels today. And our first caller, just to show the true international dimension of all of this, is Scott, who's calling from Florida. Scott, good evening, or good afternoon, sorry.
Good afternoon and good evening to you, Nigel. Big fan. Thanks for Brexit. I wanted to say about the United Kingdom, I think internally it feels much more divided than it really is at the core, because looking at it from across the pond, I feel like the referendums that you've had in recent years with Scotland, Brexit, and so on have actually helped to clear the air on things that have been debated for over a generation. And so I think that the healing's starting, and I think really you're more united than you think.
Well, Scott, I rather do suspect that. I mean, tell me, what interest do you have in this? Do you have sort of Scottish or Welsh heritage? What is it about this debate that fascinates you?
I'm a sort of British mutt, if you like, because I have Ulster blood in me. I have Southern Irish blood, English, Welsh, so basically all corners.
Yes. And you would like to see the UK stay together, yeah?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I wrote to Andrew Rosendale a few years ago, the MP for Romford, and
Yes.
he was saying something about how nice it is to have a British stalwart overseas. And I think I'm proud to be an American, but I think you can love Britain and be proud of your roots there at the same time as you love being an American.
Well, I feel the same the other way around. And I spent much of my working life, Scott, working for American companies. And as you know, I got myself a bit involved last year in the presidential election campaign. And I've been visiting back and forth on quite a regular basis. And I'm really hopeful, Scott, that between our two countries, we're going to get a whole lot closer as a result of Brexit in terms of trade and everything else. Scott, thank you all the way from Florida for supporting our United Kingdom, which I agree with you, looks safer and more secure than it has for some time. I wonder what Christian in York thinks of that proposal. Christian, good evening.
All right, Nigel, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. So what do you think?
Yeah. I think we will be more united once, like, Northern Ireland and Scotland see us leave. They say, well, the thing is, no deal, I think no deal would be better than a bad deal, because have you seen the EU lately? They're playing up that we're leaving. They're being childish of how we're leaving the EU. They're trying to say, oh, we need out. They want us out, and they're being childish about it, personally.
Well, I think some have been. Some have been. I mean, I'm hoping that what's going to happen now is that we're actually going to have some sensible negotiations that take place between Monsieur Barnier and David Davis, and all of the sort of silly punishment demands we were hearing will be dropped. And, I guess Nicola Sturgeon will say, well, if we don't get a deal, the Scots may not like that, and maybe in those circumstances we'll have a second referendum on leaving the UK. But you know what, Christian? I don't think it's going to happen.
No, I don't think it's going to happen. Because because they're going to see what Brexit is all about soon enough. They're going to see how great we're going to make this country.
Well,
and if there is no deal, I'd tell them to, this leaving bill that they've got on, this big leaving bill.
Yeah.
I'd tell them to stick it where the sun doesn't shine, personally.
Well, Christian, much as I share some of that sentiment, I think maybe the David Davis approach should be tried to begin with, where it may come to that in the end, and David Davis may have to say that to them. But I'm sure you'd agree with me, that should not be our offering gambit, should it?
No. Personally, I think they should have you leading negotiations.
What?
I think you'd be brilliant for the negotiations for leaving the Brexit.
It's very sweet of you. I'd love to, but the government don't really like me very much, so it's a bit unfortunate. Christian, thank you very much for your call. Stuart says to me, messages me, he says, of course the Scots now want to stay. How long before they now start asking for more money after the DUP settlement? Well, actually, Stuart, that's been happening already. They've been saying how unfair it is. And Mikey says, funnily enough, Nigel, when Theresa May took over, she declared her love for the union, and she's solidified that. Yes, probably, though, by accident, I suggest. Barbara in Edinburgh. How's it feeling in Edinburgh tonight after this big announcement from Nicola Sturgeon?
Oh, well, it had to come. I expected it.
Yes.
Yes.
And is that because support for independent stroke separation is genuinely diminishing in Scotland?
Well, I think so, because, as you know, that quite a number of SNP supporters didn't want to stay in the European Union, and I think that's been a big factor.
Well, you know what? A third of SNP voters voted to leave. There's probably I think actually the most pro-Remain parties in Scotland, well, the Liberal Democrats obviously, but actually the Tories in Scotland are were a very pro-Remain party.
I think they still are a bit. If you know what I mean?
Yes. No. Well, I do. So in a sense, if you're a Scottish nationalist, and if you believe in what Salmond and Sturgeon have been telling you, and the flag, and we can do this on our own, and all the rest of it, and if you believe in that, and then the next sentence you're told, but will be part of the European Union, where foreign parliaments and courts and everything else will make decisions, it's not hard to see. It's not hard, Barbara, really, is it, to see why a genuine nationalist would not want to be part of the European Union?
That's right, and of course I have a bit of more respect for people who are genuine independent seekers.
Yes.
Even though I disagree with them, it doesn't make sense to me. It's just this English-hating aspect of things that really gets me.
Well, some of it, I have to say, I've experienced myself in the streets of your fine city. Not an experience I'd wish to repeat again. Barbara, is the Union safer now than it was a couple of years ago?
I believe so. But can I just say, Nigel, I'm actually moving to England just to be safe.
Just to be safe. I'm sure you're very safe in Edinburgh, and I don't think you've got anything to fear at all.
No, I really am moving to England.
Right. And whereabouts in England are you coming to?
Chichester.
Chichester. Very nice indeed.
Yes.
Barbara, terrific. Thank you very much indeed for your call. And you're listening to the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC, and it's 7:15.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
Did we lose that last caller?
Theresa May accused last night of paying, quote,
yeah, we're going to come to it. We're going to get him back and come to him after the break.
Fine.
a £1 billion deal with the Democratic Unionist Party. James Hanning is a journalist and biographer of David Cameron, former deputy editor of The Independent on Sunday, joins me now. James, how would you characterise this deal? Good morning.
It is a sweetener, it's grubby, it's shameful, it's a bribe, it's a bung. This is realpolitik. I would say it's inglorious at best.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast every weekday morning from 7, only on LBC.
With Hampton by Hilton, now open in Aberdeen.
We asked people to put a price on their hearing. One reply said £100 trillion because I love music
Alistair.
and languages. Another said priceless. Who wouldn't want
Has
to hear
Dan
their
put those pictures on my
grandchildren
Facebook
laughing?
yet?
We
I
know
it's on
how
Twitter.
much you value your hearing. That's why at Boots we have interest-free monthly payment plans available to make the right hearing solution for you even more affordable. Boots, let's feel good. Subject to status, over 18s only. Terms and conditions apply.
Stub out your last cigarette and celebrate with a holiday in the Caribbean. London South Bank University is looking for smokers to take part in an exciting new research project in the capital. You'll be paid to take part, and along with the chance to become a non-smoker, there's a Caribbean holiday and more to be won.
Sorry.
So hurry. Search online for LSBU Stop Smoking Study.
Maybe, I guess,
That's
he probably hasn't got the originals yet. All right, don't worry.
Stop Smoking
Don't worry.
Study. Over 18s only. T's and C's apply.
When you hear a PPI commercial like this, you think, I wonder if I ever did have PPI. And maybe I should claim with the deadline being announced. And then you think, oh, but I'm not sure where my paperwork is. So you end up doing nothing. Well, here's the easiest thing in the world to do. Just text the word EASY to 60777 and the claims guys will conduct a free search to discover if you ever had PPI. And then you can decide to pursue the claim yourself or get the claims guys to do it for you. Text EASY to 60777 now.
The claims guys. We'll keep on turning, proud to keep on burning, rolling on the river.
With breakdown cover from the AA, we'll do whatever it takes to make sure your big wheels keep on turning. Our mechanics usually get you going again in 30 minutes. Breakdown cover from the AA, because anything can happen.
Divorce. It threatens the things you've worked hard for in more ways than you can imagine. Your home, savings, pension, and most of all, your relationship with your children. Don't let divorce cost you any more than it has to. Cordell & Cordell is dedicated to helping men in matters relating to divorce. Call now on 0330 60 60 161 or visit cordellcordell.co.uk, office in central London. A partner.
30 seconds left on the ads, Nigel.
Oh.
What's the anxiety this time, Joe?
Oh, I think I'm losing it.
In the mind?
No, losing the sale.
Charlie and Carter's there, good to go.
Calls.
What, to boost the profits?
Yes, and take business calls on any device.
Ah, I've got the answer. You need to take the Vonage.
Yes.
Vonage, the perfect phone system for small business. Packed with clever features to make your business better. Keep calm and talk
Okay, here we go.
once a month. Visit vonage.co.uk. Excludes VAT at 20%. Terms apply.
This is LBC, live from Brussels, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 03 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
So the Northern Irish DUP are keeping the Conservative government in business. Today, Nicola Sturgeon has announced that plans for a second separation referendum, Indy Ref 2, have now been put on hold. And I'm saying to you that I think the United Kingdom is looking a bit more united than perhaps it did a couple of years ago, despite all the fears that were expressed over Brexit. But there is a question about how fair this union is. So what we saw was the DUP getting an extra £1 billion sterling for their people as part of that deal over the next 2 years. And lots of people took to the airways, from Wales, Labour's leader, Carwyn Jones, First Minister, he took to the air to say it was unfair, it was wrong, that Wales should have some more money. And indeed, many Scottish nationalists took to the airwaves to say, once again, it was unfair, and Scotland should get some more money. Now, let's just have a look at how much money is spent throughout the United Kingdom, and these are the figures from last year. Per capita, the government last year spent £11,500 per head in Northern Ireland. It spent £10,500 per head in Scotland. It spent almost exactly £10,000 per head on people in Wales, and in England, £8,800. So it's interesting, isn't it, that lots of voices in Scotland and Wales saying it's not fair. Nobody in British politics saying, hey, what about the English? We seem to be getting a really rotten deal out of all of this. I wonder whether there are some of you out there who think that whilst the United Kingdom will stay together, or perhaps you think it won't, but it will stay together, that actually there needs to be a fairer financial settlement because England is subsidising too much of it. I know if Alex Salmon's listening, he'll go berserk. He hates that thought. Charlie in Cardiff, are we a more united union than we were a couple of years ago?
I'm hoping we are, yes. I think Mrs May has actually done us a favour by having the general election.
Yes.
And I think now it's taken the pressure off us coming apart as separate nations. I still think we're divided between those who are pro-European and those who are not. And actually, I'm quite interested in your comment about the Scottish independence referendum, as the Scots and Nats call it, or separation referendum, as you call it.
Yes.
And I'm wondering what the subtle difference is and what you regard the EU referendum as. Was that an independence referendum or a separation referendum?
Oh.
Are you a separatist or...
Charlie, I helped to found a party back in September 1993 that was called the Independence Party because I believed strongly, factually, that you cannot be an independent nation state and a member of the European Union. You can call it all sorts of other things, and you can argue it brings benefits, but you can't talk about independence and being part of the European Union because, for good or bad, you give your authority to, higher courts and everything else. So I've felt, Charlie, that the Scottish nationalists have been completely misusing this word independence, and I think in the Brexit referendum they got somewhat found out. That's my view, Charlie, on it.
Is that because they wanted to stay in Europe, but out, so independent of the UK, but not independent of Europe?
That's right. And so I don't, and so I don't think that was a very sincere use of the word. So that's why, I've always used the word separatist. And by the way, Charlie, I agree with you.
Before you go, one quick point I just like to say. You were saying about a new settlement. What I would like to see actually is a new political settlement. I think Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, England should have the same powers devolved from them, and then you wouldn't have questions like the West Lothian question, as it's called, or evil English laws for English, English votes for English laws. But I think that would certainly.
But we are sort of,
and more likely to hold us together as a nation as well if we're. Each of the separate nations are treated treated equally.
Yes, well, that would be the move towards a federal United Kingdom, wouldn't it, Charlie? And actually, I certainly think that the devolution process that we've seen since the mid-late 1990s is taking us in that direction. And like you, I'm perfectly relaxed about it and think that probably we're more likely long-term to stay together on that basis. And Charlie, I also have to say, I completely agree with your point and it was made in a previous message that you're right. I think Mrs. May has done the union a favour, but I think it was more by accident, Charlie, than it was by design, don't you?
We do, yes.
Okay. Listen, Charlie, thank you very much indeed for your comments. Sean in East Ham, good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. How are you?
Well, I'm all right, and I'm wondering, do you agree with me that the United Kingdom now looks pretty certain to stay together?
I'm sorry to say, Nigel, I don't, I'm afraid.
Okay, tell me why.
Because I believe the election was the fuel to the fire. Because I don't see how Theresa May in any way is able to get a good Brexit deal for the UK, because for one, we've got a Scottish National Party and a Scottish First Minister who always seems to want independence, and during the referendum and after the referendum vote came in, believes that she wanted to leave the Union and go to be in the EU rather than the Union. And we've also got a Northern Ireland without an executive, have no government to represent them in the negotiations. So I don't really see how Theresa May is a Prime Minister with a reduced majority, a minority government propped up by the DUP without no majority at all. So I don't see how she can unite the United Kingdom and get a good Brexit deal.
All right, well, lots and lots of points there, Sean. Lots and lots of points there. I mean, firstly, I would say to you that, yes, you're quite right, Northern Ireland's been in complete stalemate. But I think in terms of Northern Ireland's influence over UK politics as a whole, this has been a pretty historic week for them. And I'm pretty sure that we are going to get back to business instalment before too long. I'm confident of that. At least I hope that's what happens. As far as Scotland's concerned, well, Sean, as I say, I don't believe the word independence makes sense, because you cannot be independent and be in the European Union. But Mr. Juncker has said that Scotland, if it left the UK, could reapply to join the European Union. Right at the moment, Sean, they'd probably be rejected, ironically, because their public finances are so out of kilter. But the reason people would not vote for this, Sean, is it would mean joining the euro. Any new member state that comes into the European Union has to make a commitment to join the euro. And I just don't think the Scottish people would vote for that.
Yeah, but during the referendum, I voted for Remain. I'm not ashamed to admit it. But now I've sort of shifted away, and I've sort of come into the mindset now that I believe that as we begin the negotiations and this failed general election that Theresa May called, I believe that we would be better off outside of the EU, because we could forge our own place in the world. And I feel that we won't be any more poorer or any more less strong than we are now. We're without the EU, because before we went into the EU we managed just fine, so we can manage without it now.
Well, Sean, that's an interesting shift in your position. And do you want to see the United Kingdom stay together as a whole?
I do, because my grandfather, he was Irish, and my aunt, she's Scottish. So, and I spoke to them about the possibility of the union breaking up, and I've always thought, because I'm speaking from a young person's point of view, because I'm 19.
Yep.
And I thought that all I've ever known really is the United Kingdom as England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. And I feel that if we somewhere down the line came the point where it was just England, Wales, and Northern Ireland, and Scotland was an independent country, it would be very hard to think, well, you were with us for so long. It would almost, in a way, be I would feel a sense of betrayal, because we were one union together. Well, our people live here, our British people live here, English people live here, and Scottish people live in Scotland, and Scottish people live in Scotland, and English people live in Scotland, and all over the EU. So I feel it'd be a sense of betrayal.
Well, I don't think it's going to happen, Sean. I don't think it's going to happen. But
I don't.
But your point about betrayal is interesting, because there are some people in Brussels who say, look, that's that Farage bloke. He's betrayed us. He's betrayed the European Union. So that word can mean many things. Sean?
I think personally, Nigel, you've done more to unite the United Kingdom and bring the United Kingdom stronger than either Theresa May or David Cameron ever did.
Well, I don't know about that, but I thank you, Sean, for your call. Call us again soon. John in Omagh, Northern Ireland. Been a good week for Northern Ireland, hasn't it?
Yes, hello, Nigel. Thanks very much for taking the call. Yeah, it has, and it hasn't in some ways. I think in answer to the motivation that we have there, I think politically, structurally, the union has been tightened up. I think it's more secure.
Yes.
On an individual level, I feel that the disruption and the comparisons between Northern Ireland and the rest of the regions throughout the UK will be harmful. I think there's one issue that I would just try and make with you very, very briefly, and again, thanks for taking the call.
That's okay.
And it's this one. I live in Omagh, and you would know the residents of that. I wouldn't go for any special case pleading for Northern Ireland, but there should be some acceptance of the fact that, you know, for 30 plus years, and I grew up during the Troubles here, you know, I saw them face to face. You know, it was hard times, and financially and structurally, you know, the money that went into the security apparatus, police stations, the army bases, everything else, you know, that was diverted away from investment and infrastructure. And we fell behind the south of Ireland and all the other regions. Now,
John, I do accept. I understand that point, and it's a point that's been well made with the DUP. But do you think at some point in time, the English look at this formula of spending per head in Northern Ireland, Wales and Scotland and start to say, is this fair?
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, at some point. I mean,
the acceptance of the Troubles, though, should be distinct from what has happened. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, no, and John, listen, you've made the point beautifully. I thank you for your call. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 7:30 and time for the news with Tim Humphrey.
The European Court has rejected a plea from the parents of terminally ill baby Charlie Gard to intervene in his case. Parents took a case against his doctors who say he should be allowed to die. A powerful cyber attack has hit companies and organisations around the world. Banks, energy companies and even radiation monitoring systems have been affected. Plans for a second vote on Scottish independence have been put on hold. First Minister Nicola Sturgeon says she's been listening since her party suffered big losses at the general election. LBC weather, heavy rain in southeast England tonight. That will become lighter as it moves northwards, a low of 12 degrees. More rain tomorrow with a few bright spells and a high of 22 degrees.
LBC Travel. Good evening. I'm Andy Lake. Well, right in the centre of London, Kennington Road, Lambeth Road and Millbank are all looking slow as people avoid the works at Westminster Bridge. In East London, the A13 is queuing eastbound from the Canning Town flyover to Movers Lane and Barking, with the bad weather adding to the usual delays. Further east, the A12 has just had a lane blocked eastbound at Hainault Road in Romford. That's because the bus has broken down, causing queues on the approach. And in Norfolk, the A11 is crawling eastbound, approaching the Thickthorne roundabout just to the west side of Norwich there. The underpass is flooded and a car is stuck. Onto the rails, London Overground are suspended between Willesden Junction and Camden Road, leaving severe delays across the network. Great Northern are also severely delayed northbound between Hatfield and Welwyn Garden City. For more real-time traffic updates, go to lbc.co.uk.
This is LBC.
The big red building on Gold
Hi, Tom. You there?
The menswear
Hello, Nigel.
How are we doing?
outlet are holding their biggest
Very nicely, very nicely. So, Trump after the break?
% off
Yes.
all suits, jackets.
You got everything you need?
Yeah.
The brands in sizes up to 72-inch chest and portly fittings. Everything must go at Gold's. 110 to 114 Golders Green Road. Open Sunday to Friday till 6. Closed Saturday.
The big red building on Golders Green Road.
Are you confused about PPI? At PPI Hotline, we want to give you the facts. There is absolutely every reason to check you had PPI. Even if you think you never have, we can help you find out, as you could be owed thousands. And now there's a deadline. We just need the name of the bank you've had loans or credit cards with, and we'll check for free. So find out now if you're owed by texting WIN to 82222.
PPI Hotline. Text WIN to 82222.
History's made at Lord's.
Durham are the champions.
It's Stuart Broad, it's Nottinghamshire. The Royal London One-Day Cup Final takes place at the home of cricket on Saturday the 1st of July.
Gone! It's the glorious Gloucester
won it. Amazing scenes.
Experience the drama of a cup final at Lord's, with tickets available from just £30. Search Lord's Final to find out more.
I've always paid into my pension, but never thought about how it was performing or how much I was being charged for it. That's why I contacted the specialists at Pension Works. They carried out a pension health check, which found hidden costs and expensive fees within my pension that could have cost me years of lost retirement income, meaning more money for my future.
Let the Pension Works check your private pension for free before it's too late. Text YES to 83222. That's YES to 83222.
I used to work in a call centre. Every weekend, instead of being with my man, lost in conversation, I was with customers who'd lost their internet connection. But now I drive with Uber, so I only work weekends when I feel like it.
Oh, the football's on this weekend.
Like this weekend.
Okay, back in 10, Nigel.
Work or not, at the touch of a button. Find out more at uber.com/driveuk. Uber, where to?
The Nigel Farage Show, live from Brussels, only on LBC.
Big story that broke overnight in America was that CNN, the news network, the one oft derided by President Trump and with whom he's been absolutely at war, overnight, there have been the resignations of 3 quite big-name journalists at CNN. It concerns a story that they put out last Thursday suggesting that Anthony Scaramucci, who was a member of the Trump transition team, had had a formal meeting with the head of a big Russian investment fund, that investment fund took its money from Putin's government, and that there was a big Senate Intelligence Committee investigation. That is what CNN put out last week. Turns out that all of that evidence came from just one unidentified source, and CNN, realizing they're in real trouble with this story, have clearly forced these 3 journalists to resign. Do you think that President Trump took that without saying anything? Oh no. Fake news CNN is looking at big management changes. Now they got caught falsely pushing their phony Russian stories. Ratings way down. And then he goes on, Trump, he says, so they caught fake news CNN cold. But what about NBC, CBS, and ABC? What about the failing New York Times and Washington Post? They're all fake news. So Trump, having got really quite a big scalp with CNN, clearly absolutely at war with that media that he accuses constantly of fake news. Well, in this case, it certainly was fake news. The one thing that Trump was wrong about is when he said ratings way down. In fact, the Trump presidency has been just the best ever news for cable television, for talk radio, for newspapers. The Donald being there means more and more people, whether they love him or hate him, follow daily what is happening in American politics. But yeah, really a big story. And one other little story that I can't resist today that I think is good news for the United Kingdom, and I think we can all agree, Leavers and Remainers, I hope, can agree. Do you remember last year there was some talk that Nissan, with its huge plant up in Sunderland, and there were claims that they were very worried about the impact of Brexit and what that might do to car manufacture up in Sunderland. Despite this, the people of Sunderland voted out. Well, today, the Japanese Prime Minister, Shinzo Abe, says he wants a stronger bond with the United Kingdom post-Brexit, and that informal negotiations between us and them on a trade deal are to begin straight away, something that has been welcomed by Liam Fox, the International Trade Secretary. So I would say, whichever side of the argument we're on, that surely must be good news for the United Kingdom. And we return to our debate of, is the United Kingdom more united than it was before? I think it's certainly looking more united than it was before the general election. And I think we're going to stay together. I wonder what Joanne in Exeter makes of that proposal.
Good evening, Nigel. It's wonderful to talk
Good
to
evening.
you.
I like your politics, and I think you're a straight-talking, switched-on politician. And please, before we go any further, please do continue what you're doing, because I think you're the only politician with a backbone that can stand up to Europe, you know, those guys in Brussels. But the point I'm going to make is, Theresa May joining allegiances, forming allegiances with the DUP. Has it crossed your mind that we may see, this is very serious and it's very worrying, we may see a resurgence in IRA activity?
Well, I don't see that we should necessarily do that, Joanne. Let's just look at it. This is not like the 2010 deal between Cameron and Clegg, which was a formal coalition with, you know, Liberal Democrats coming into cabinet positions and everything else. This is what is called confidence and supply, you know, and it means that the DUP are going to vote with the government, actually in most cases, Joanne, on things they would have voted for the government on anyway. So you know, now there has been talk, and there has been some sort of scare stories that, you know, does this threaten the Good Friday Agreement, etc. I simply can't see, Joanne, why it should.
Well, you see, she's giving support to the North, isn't she? And in the Republicans' eyes, I sincerely hope we don't, because, you know, it's very worrying and it's very distressing. But I do think, in a way, she's getting into bed with the terrorists, and, you know, we have to be very worried. Why did she go to Northern Ireland? Why didn't she call on the Liberals or the Labours to bolster her up?
I think, Joanne, well, because of Brexit. Because the Lib Dems' position on Brexit is diametrically opposed to hers. And by the way, Joanne, during the election campaign, during the referendum campaign, you know, I shared platforms with two of the DUP MPs, both in this country and indeed when I was over in Belfast. And Joanne, it is really not fair of you to talk about the DUP and say that she's getting into bed with terrorists. That simply isn't fair.
Okay, I didn't mean to be offensive in any way. I'm just worried about the consequences that we may have from this, you know.
Joanne, I've known the DUP for many, many years, and yes, they have socially, you know, some very conservative ideas, small c conservative ideas about abortion, homosexual marriage, things like that, which some people like and some people loathe. But honestly, I've seen no evidence to suggest that any of these people, any of these 10, have ever had links, direct links, genuine links with terrorism of any kind at all, Joanne. And I'm saying that to you as a reassurance, and I would say to all of you listening, if anybody can prove me wrong, please call me and tell me. Joanne, I thank you very much indeed for your call and for your very, very kind words. I thank you. Peter on Facebook says, imagine if we had an English national party. We'd be called racists. Some point to that. Douglas says the general election showed what Scotland thinks of Sturgeon and her bunch of incompetent chancers. If she had any conviction, she'd call another Holyrood election. I bet she won't. Paul says, Nigel, as a country, we've always been united, but the political left don't want this. They thrive on chaos, and Brexit brought them out of the woodwork. Nicola Sturgeon speaks for a minority government and a minority of voters. Andrew thinks on Twitter that the UK must stay as one. Sturgeon has realised the Scots don't want to be on their own. The EU sharks must not win on their terms. Well, I think the EU sharks, as you put it, are losing when it comes to Scottish National Party voters. And I have to say, if the SNP voters in another referendum on leaving the UK thought that meant joining the euro, I think the margin wouldn't be 55, 45 as it was a couple of years ago. It'd be a heck of a lot wider. John in Camberley, good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. Lovely to speak to you. I've not spoken before.
Well, welcome to the show. And John, you know, I'm saying the United Kingdom feels stronger. What do you think?
I want it to go stronger and stronger and stronger. And I think the only way that that's going to happen is if people really dig deep into their optimism bag and start pulling the stuff out and, you know, fluffing it into the air. Because reality is, we are a very small nation of people when you look at the quantity of us, and we've done some amazing things.
Yes, we certainly have.
It doesn't matter if it's Scottish, the Welsh, the Irish, the English, we've been at war with each other in some of these centuries. We've never been able to play on the same teams at anything. So we've got our own individual football teams, our own individual rugby teams. If we could have one team of all of those, we'd probably have the best in the world. And the reality is that, you know, we're a set of different people that have great history.
Well, we do have
it's just a shame.
So, John, you would like to see a United Kingdom football team? Not okay, fine. That's your proposal. I can't see that being very popular, because I think that whilst we do want to stay as a United Kingdom, although there are some in England, I think, who would like to see a different financial settlement, but whilst we do want to stay as a United Kingdom, do you know what, John? Your plan for a United football team is never, ever going to work, in my view.
Well, we've got to do something, and we've got to get away from this shopkeeper mentality and start getting back to, you know, the inventing, the entrepreneurial spirit, and literally take this as an opportunity to really, you know, get money back into the system to build the infrastructures and stuff behind us. Profitable businesses employ people, and it's all down to ideas at the moment.
And you think,
ideas.
and you think, John, that a United Kingdom that is more strongly linked together would produce more entrepreneurship? Is that the point you're making?
100%. If we have the best of Scotland, the best of Northern Ireland, the best of Wales, all saying, right, when we do something, we bring everybody up with us. You know, a leg up and a leg out of Europe. That's what we need.
John, you put your point very clearly. John, I think, who's just made the strongest argument I've ever heard for the United Kingdom. A true believer. Right now, you're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC, and it's 7:45.
Coming up at 8.
Clear.
EC Clive.
Grenfell Tower survivors have written to Theresa May demanding a say in the
So,
public inquiry.
Tom,
do you think enough is being done?
Yes.
I'll talk a bit about my little journey this morning, yeah?
Clive Bull on LBC.
We've all been...
Sounds good to me. Sounds
Yeah,
good.
fine.
Often feels like stopping them is practically impossible. All this week, LBC continues to carry out a special report about nuisance phone calls. We'll look at everything from why you get them to how they get your number. With new Sky Talk Shield, Sky's personalised call screening service for your landline that lets you answer the calls you want and block the ones you don't. Find out more at lbc.co.uk.
The high-quality kitchen you've dreamed of at a price well within your budget. That's Room Sense.
That's Room Sense.
This month, all kitchens are half price with a free oven hob and extractor. Book your free home design visit today at roomsense.co.uk.
Quality at a price you can afford. That's Room Sense.
Offer ends soon. Minimum spend applies.
I've always paid into my pension, but never thought about how it was performing or how much I was being charged for it. That's why I contacted the specialists at PensionWorks. They carried out a pension health check, which found hidden costs and expensive fees within my pension that could have cost me years of lost retirement income, meaning more money for my future.
Let the PensionWorks check your private pension for free before it's too late. Text YES to 83222. That's YES to 83222.
Your future is here. The Global Academy in Hayes is a state school for 14 to 19-year-olds interested in a media career. Find out more at globalacademy.com.
Hello to new favourite bars, new music as well, new secrets to share, new stories to tell. Say hello to something new today at helloyoudating.com.
We asked people to put a price on their hearing. One reply said £100 trillion because I love music and languages. Another said, priceless. Who wouldn't want to hear their grandchildren laughing? We know how much you value your hearing. That's why at Boots we have interest-free monthly payment plans available to make the right hearing solution for you even more affordable. Boots, let's feel good. Subject to status, over 18s only. Terms and conditions apply.
Are you confused about PPI? At PPI Hotline, we want to give you the facts. There is absolutely every reason to check you had PPI. Even if you think you never have, we can help you find out, as you could be owed thousands. And now there's a deadline. We just need the name of the bank you've had loans or credit cards.
I'm back in 10, Nigel.
For free. So find out now if you're owed by texting WIN to 82222.
PPI Hotline. Text WIN to 82222.
This is LBC, live from Brussels, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
Well, I've been in Brussels for the day, but I did actually get up rather early. 3:30 this morning I got up and headed off to get the first channel over to the continent, where I was very, very lucky to go to a little First World War cemetery called Brandhoek, just behind Ypres, where I met up with Lord Ashcroft. For those that know Lord Ashcroft, Tory peer, former Tory treasurer, and the biggest collector the world's ever had of Victoria crosses. I think he owns 205 of them, and they're all there in the Imperial War Museum. And today he was visiting and doing some filming at the grave of a man called Noel Chavasse, who won, not one, but 2 Victoria crosses in the First World War. He was a medic, stunningly brave, and Ashcroft was there, and he had the medals with him. So I've actually held today a VC with a bar, a double VC, something I will never do again in my life. And so I'm very grateful to Lord Ashcroft for that unbelievable opportunity. And if any of you have never visited what is basically an hour from Calais by car, I'd recommend that you do. What of the United Kingdom? Robert in Borough, what's the future of the UK? Is it good or bad?
I think it's a bit troubled at the moment.
Okay.
The DUP, I don't think, are fit to support our government.
Why not?
Most of them are orange men. Most of them are orange men, which is a sectarian organisation. You can't be Catholic or married to a Catholic and be an orange man.
Well,
that's not a good start to supporting the government.
Okay, look, I do understand the point you make about, you know, the huge religious differences that exist between Northern Ireland and London or most of the rest of England. I get that, but actually, Robert, this government is not going to put forward, at least not that I can see, any very contentious social legislation, is it?
Oh, I agree with you there, but it's like going into government with a party that wouldn't allow Jamaicans in. You wouldn't. I think the English people wouldn't dream of having them sort of people near government, and that's what we've done with the DUP. They're not fit to be near government, to be influencing it. They're sectarian. They're endorsed by the UVF, the Red Hand Commandos, who would be pretty close to the Orange Men anyway.
Well,
so they're just not fit.
Yeah.
Yes, they're elected representatives.
I do want to make.
not fit for government.
I do want to make the point, Robert, that none of these 10 have had any direct links with terrorist groups that I'm aware of, and I feel that with some confidence. No, Robert, you obviously don't like their social agenda. You don't like this incredible religious divide that exists in Northern Ireland. But remember, they're not actually joining the government. They've done a deal with the government, a confidence and supply deal with the government. They will vote for the government in a motion of confidence. They will support the government with its budget, and they will support the government through the Brexit process. I don't believe that threatens the union, but you still do, yeah?
Well, I think it's just so divisive to have people who are clearly sectarian having an influence on government.
Well, what choice did you...
That's all I've got to say.
No.
It's poisonous to have them near.
Yeah, no, I understand your point of view, but let me just ask you this last quick question. What choice did Theresa May have?
Oh, she's anti-Brexit originally anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So, she went along with the 52%. The Northern Ireland overall voted to stay in Europe. Scotland voted to stay. So it was sort of borderline and divisive. I think she should have stuck to her beliefs. She said it would be a disaster leaving. And it's not going well. And I think the 48% has probably gained a bit of momentum since then. So to me, it's a bit like a sex change operation. It's so forever. you got to be very sure before you get the bits cut off, and 52% isn't sure enough, Nigel.
Well, Robert, you could argue that, but equally, there were quite a few polls done in the lead up to and one just after the general election that suggested that now 70% want the government to get on with Brexit on the basis that some have changed their minds in favour of Brexit because, they can see their house price hasn't collapsed, and others believe in democracy. So, Robert, I'm not sure you're right about that. You may be. Time will tell. But, Robert, thank you for your call. Robert, who feels very strongly that it's absolutely wrong of Theresa May to have gone to the DUP for support because of their sectarian beliefs. Brendan in Droitwich, how do you feel about the union, Brendan?
I feel very badly about it. I've had a lot of experience involving it myself with the union, not in politics, but in business. And all I see is massive waste, massive salary payments, and massive benefits. I voted to stay, to go into the union when it was not a federal state, when it was a common market. It no longer is a common market. We're controlled by Brussels. I've had enough. I've followed you since you started UKIP. And the sooner we're out, the better.
Yeah, and, let's assume, Brendan, I've expressed fears about backsliding on various issues and perhaps long transitional arrangements, and all that will unfold. But assuming we get the Brexit that we voted for, do you think that would then potentially give Nicola Sturgeon a chance to break away from the United Kingdom?
No, I think Nicola Sturgeon's had a day. She should go back to the Crankies where she started a career.
Right. Well, I'm not going to say that about her, but what I will agree with you on is I think we've passed the high watermark of Scottish nationalism. And I think that's absolutely right. Brendan, thank you very much for your kind call. Ross in Bristol, how are you feeling about our union? Is it safe, strong and secure?
It's looking stronger, Nigel. First time on your show.
Good evening.
I just want to ask you a question, right?
Uh-huh.
Where you're part of the EEC at the moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what makes the UK different from the EEC? You still have 4 countries that live and work, use the same currency, and depend on one another out of Westminster.
Because...
So what's the difference between the EEC and the UK?
Because we have a common language, a common culture, with differences, yes, but a common culture, a common shared history. And you know what, Ross? Ultimately, we would stand up and be prepared to make sacrifices to help each other. That is what a nation is. And what the as you called it, the EEC, well, it's not that anymore, is it? It's the EU now. What they've done...
That's what I meant.
Yeah, what they've done is to give people a flag, an anthem, a president, and to say, you're all Europeans now. Well, actually, the French feel French, the Germans feel German, and it's still a small minority of people who feel European is their identity. Ross, I think that's the difference, don't you?
Yeah, to a degree, but then you've got the Welsh that'll stand up and say, we're proud being Welsh, and the Scots do the same, and so do the Irish. And if you look at my country, we're the same. We have 6 or 7 states, and each state is proud of its own history, and
yes, but you still identify with Australia, and I think what I'm saying to you is the majority of people across this United Kingdom identify first and foremost with their United Kingdom or British or other ways of putting it, identity. We don't recognise Europe being the same thing. Ross, I thank you very much for your call. Joe says, Nigel, I used to support the SNP, but now feel more affinity with Brexiteers in England than dependency culture Scots. I'm with you guys. Tina says, I completely agree. We're more united. We really ought to be more of a united kingdom. It just makes sense, is what Tina believes. John in Formby, you're my last caller of the evening. How do you see the future of the Union?
Well, I think there are worries and cracks and divides, but I think the defeat of Sturgeon at the election, for that's what it was, does set back Scottish independence some time. If I could coin an expression, there have been insurgents. People who are fed up with her. They don't want another referendum.
No, they really don't, do they?
But there's a second factor. There's the fact that so many services up there are appalling, not least education. and many Scots are worried about that. If I could leave you with a final thought about the paradox of Sturgeon wanting independence but wanting to be ruled from Brussels.
Yes.
It's rather like if Mr. Spock came to Scotland and he would say it's independence but not as we know it.
Very good. John, superb. John, somebody, we've had lots of first-time callers tonight. John is a regular and always makes some really super points. Well, I have to say, my final thought on all of this is that the idea that Brexit would break up the United Kingdom, and that's why we should either not vote for it or reverse it, was something put about by the Europhiles, put about by the Blairs, put about by the Hagues, put about by everybody in this building here in Brussels, and it's proved already to be total and utter rot. The UK is going to stay together, and I think that's a good thing, and I support that, but I do think we're going to get at some point in time a growing English voice which says the financial deal actually that the English are getting out of this is pretty rotten and needs to be improved. You've been listening to the Nigel Farage Show. I'm back tomorrow in London from 7. Coming up at 10, it's Ian Collins. But up next, it's Clive Bull.
Nigel, thank you. Now, later on, a powerful cyber attack
That John from Formby always makes wonderful points.
Across the world, hitting.
Very nice note to end. I love that he said, "I've got a final thought as well."
I know.
We'll have
I
the
know,
latest
I know.
on that.
Thank you.
Learn from the best.
Health Hour, GP Dr. Eddie Cannon will be here to answer your